So we are the largest lead generator of prospective franchisee leads in the country. So if you're a guy in Dayton, Ohio, and you've just had enough, your boss is just a lunatic, and you feel like you're not appreciated, and you're not making enough money, you Google best franchise for under 200,000 or whatever you Google. Odds are you'll come to either our site, Franchise Help, or one of the sites where the back end tech behind.
Amazing.
And so that's step one. Next part on the value chain is like working those leads. And we developed a communication tool called FranFunnel, which helps people work that franchise lead.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today we're going to be talking to Rob Huntington, the CEO of Metric Collective. Before Metric, Rob was a consultant with the Boston Consulting Group for multiple Fortune 500 companies. He also received the BCG Social Impact Fellowship and served in Nicaragua. He led a turnaround of the Huntington Learning Centers as the SVP of Development and Operations. Prior to that, he was an HLC franchisee. Additionally, he has been a franchise broker with a franchise consulting company and managed a $50 million P&L for DaVita, a Fortune 200 company. Let's talk about franchising.
Hey, Rob Huntington, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for being here. Where are you calling from right now?
Northern New Jersey, Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Ridgewood, New Jersey. Well, it's great to have you here, Rob. And we're going to be talking about franchising. And it's something that I don't hear often, in general. And I'm excited to dive deep into what this means in this next 20 minutes. And not just about what it means, but what it meant for your career and also what it means for young entrepreneurs that are thinking about their career trajectory and what that might mean for them. So Rob, tell me a little bit about your own career path, the different, changes you've made and how you've sort of converged on this idea of franchising and also, on a more concrete and theoretical level.
So maybe going through the history is the easiest way to answer that.
Wonderful.
Right out of college, I delayed the inevitable and went to Ecuador, taught English to make money, and did a bunch of volunteer work, and then became a teacher in an inner city school, history teacher. I love teaching, and then I started working for my family business. My family started a tutoring franchisor with about $150 million of brand revenue, and started on the ground floor, worked my way up to managing our biggest store, then bought a franchise myself that had been run into the ground. Turned it around, sold it, went to Kellogg for business school. After that, went to BCG, did the management consulting gig where you make PowerPoint slides and Excel models for, 18 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. And from there, went back to my family business. And really started to fall in love with franchising there. It's a great model. And with a franchise, you buy a system, like a way of doing business. And their franchise, clearly I'm biased, is outstanding. Like it makes a really profound difference in kids' lives. And it does it through process, like really being systematic about how you approach education. So when I was back there, we were struggling. The business was closing 30 units a year and only opening 1 or 2. I led the turnaround of that. And then it turns out that family businesses are kind of tricky places to work and didn't see eye to eye with my folks. I left. Took a job managing a $50 million P&L for a Fortune 200 company. Hated working for the man. Went back to franchising, became a franchise broker, and then met my now partners. And through a series of deals, we continued to deepen our partnership till eventually I am now CEO of Metric Collective, which is a vertically integrated franchise tech company.
What is that? What does that even mean, a franchise tech company?
We've been debating that, so that's our tagline. Like, it's a mouthful, so it's tough to say, and I don't know that that's how it's always going to be said. We're 6 months into this deal, but it is legit. Like, we do have all of those elements. So vertically integrated means we play across the whole value chain of franchising. So we are the largest lead generator of prospective franchisee leads in the country. So if you're a guy in Dayton, Ohio, and you've just had enough, your boss is just a lunatic, and you feel like you're not appreciated, and you're not making enough money, you Google best franchise for under 200,000 or whatever you Google. Odds are you'll come to either our site, Franchise Help, or one of the sites where the back end tech behind.
Amazing.
And so that's step one. Next part on the value chain is like working those leads. And we developed a communication tool called FranFunnel, which helps people work that franchise lead. It was recently rated the #1 tech tool in franchising, ahead of companies like Salesforce and HubSpot, which I'm not sure the dimensions that we are being ranked on. It's certainly not revenue. But people love us. Like, it's a super useful tool. And I used it myself when I was a franchise broker.
So maybe what would be helpful, for somebody who doesn't really understand franchising that well, tell me a little bit about what it was like, without technology, and then what are the different pain points within the franchising journey that you're able to ameliorate or augment through Metric Collective?
So through Metric Collective, we help franchise sales folks do better with our tech. We get them leads, we get them huge quantities of leads that they then work, and they can work them using our tech in a systematic way. When you're buying internet leads, like, there's a lot of garbage in there that you have to sift through to find the people who are legit. And then the next step we can do is be a fully outsourced franchise company, sales company. So someone can say, like, I'm great at teaching jujitsu or baking pizza. I have no idea how to sell franchises. We say, great, we'll be your outsourced franchise sales company.
So what does that actually mean to sell franchisers? So maybe I need you to take me back one step backwards and talk to me more about the pain point that you're coming to solve.
So to sell a franchise, selling a franchise is a hard thing to do if you don't know how to do it, like anything. Once you know how to do it, it's not all that hard. So
what does that even mean tangibly, to sell a franchise?
Yeah. So say you've got a pizza shop and you make great pizza and you want to expand. Franchising is a way in which you can expand. It's a beautiful way in which you can expand because you're using other people's money to expand who have skin in the game. So rather than build, like, having to do a capital raise and build out corporate stores and build out the whole, like, military-esque hierarchy that would be needed for like a bunch of stores, you say to someone, hey, you've got a high net worth, or depending on the model, some models require a high net worth, some don't. You want to take down, Southern New York for pizza stores. So you can buy that territory from us. We'll give you the manual on how to bake this pizza, like where we source the dough from, like the specific techniques we do, all that stuff, how we think about customer service. And that person then gets the rights to open the franchise in Southern New York. That sale is a complicated sale. You have to go through a whole bunch of legal regulation. There's a whole bunch of documents that need to be prepared. And if you're good at making pizza and selling pizza, you're not necessarily going to be good at selling franchises. You're now selling a $1 million thing as opposed to a $20 thing. So we can help people do that.
I see. So obviously there's a huge difference between selling a $1 million business idea rather than a $20 pizza box. But what are the differences tangibly in the selling point, and what are the different preparations that one needs to make that you are helping them through Metric Collective?
So we help a franchise business think about whether they're ready for franchising. Like, it's hard. It's not the right answer for everyone. It's a beautiful model in a number of ways. Like Tim Harford, that the economist from Britain, had the idea that the LLC is maybe one of the best inventions of humankind, up there with like sanitation and the wheel and things like that. Franchising's not like in that league, but I think it's a beautiful invention in a similar way. Like the LLC, a beautiful invention because it enables business. Like it breaks liability away, and it means that people can do all the stuff that your guests do without fear of like going to debtor's prison if it doesn't work out. Franchising is a beautiful way to put skin in the game and create wealth for a whole bunch of people. So first person is the actual franchisee. When you're that guy in Dayton, Ohio, and you're miserable and you're like, you know what, I want to take ownership of my life. I want to build wealth. I want to build something I can pass on to my kids. Franchising can be that. And you have to do it well. Like, you can't pick a crappy model, but once you pick a good model, and it takes some thought and effort to pick a good model, but once you pick a good model, then you follow the system And as long as you're well capitalized and you actually follow the system, sometimes people buy a franchise and then don't follow the system. And that ends up being a disaster because you bought the thing to follow the system, not like reinvent it. You can do really well. Like you can build up a serious income stream. You can get to the place where you have a team of people working for you, and you can either be absentee or you can just keep driving and building a bigger and bigger empire. And then you're building enterprise value. So you can sell it, unlike a job at the end of the day. So great for franchisees, great for franchisors. So franchisors, private equity is just starting to realize this in a really big way. Franchisors partner with that franchisee who then grows the business throughout the country, and they're using their equity and their debt to build up your brand. The margins get crazy. So once you're a franchisor at scale, your margin can be like 60%, like of the order of magnitude of like Visa and MasterCard, like eye-watering margins as a franchisor, which is why you have deals like just recently KKR bought Neighborly, a big franchise aggregator, for a crazy number. And just, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago, Neighborly was a $50 million company trading hands in lower middle market private equity. Now it's getting bought by KKR. And a large part of that is because of just the giant margins and how franchising puts skin in the game of the local owner. So great for franchisees, great for franchisors, and also great for investors, because when you invest in something like that, you get pretty phenomenal returns.
Right. And so what have you learned from working with people that are new to the franchising world, that are making this transition, and they're reconfiguring their train of thought, they're reconfiguring the way they think about business and about what their potential business could be? What are some of the, behaviors that you're seeing that, may not be so trivial to someone who's not aware of this whole transition?
Fear is the biggest one. It's terrifying for people. They're like, I've been on a career path my whole life. I am a software engineer in Dayton, Ohio, making a good income. You're telling me I should and I have a net worth of $1 million. You're telling me I should borrow against that and put 300,000 into this franchise that might then need another 100,000. It's a serious commitment. And you want to get, I don't know that I got those numbers right off the top of my head. You don't want to sell someone that is beyond their means.
100%.
So a lot of the franchisees we deal with will be a guy who owns 30 Orange Theories and now is looking for the next concept and has a big business with a serious EBITDA. So, but for someone who's new to it, fear is the big one. And then understanding risk. I think a lot of people misprice risk in franchising. So they look at it like franchising is crazy risky, and it can be, but if you're thoughtful, if you have a sufficient capital buffer, if you believe in your own skills and talents, don't do franchising if you're incompetent, but if you're competent, then you've got the capital, you've got the competence, and then make sure you pick a good model. And a good model is defined as one that you can make good money, and you can figure out what money you can make when you call around other franchisees. There's a thing called an item 19 in franchise disclosure documents that tells you, for the good franchises, what the P&L looks like. And then do the thoughtful due diligence around is this a dying industry or is this a growing industry? If it's a growing industry and there's a white space in your market and it seems like something that would be in your wheelhouse, you don't want to buy a franchise that requires sales if you're terrible at sales. You don't want to buy a franchise that is heavy on ops and supply chain if you're terrible at detail. But once you control for all of that stuff, you can de-risk it. I think de-risk it below the level of a corporate job. So you go and you juxtapose all that with a corporate job where you could have a nightmare boss. You could have colleagues who are out to get you. You could just hate the company. You could get acquired and laid off. And people ignore all those risks and look at the corporate job kind of as the safe path, whereas a franchise, if you believe in yourself, is probably equally safe. I mean, the risk profiles are slightly different, but I think that fear is the big thing. And then talking through what the real risk actually is a lot of what the buying decision is for someone who's new to franchising.
Right, I think that's a really interesting concept, and the comparison to the risks that you might have looking at the safe bet when you're considering that, well, there is actually ways to franchise that may not be as risky as somebody might think, and one may even make the case that franchising could potentially be less risky than going for the safe bet, and I think that's a really interesting comparison. So, what are some questions that you think perhaps a young entrepreneur would be able to ask themselves at some point in their career to know whether they're ready, on a personal level to transition to either selling a franchise or buying one?
Selling a franchise is kind of a corporate job. You can make tons
Right.
of money selling franchises once you get good at it and um, it become credible and know who to sell to and how to do it. To buy a franchise, it's kind of more of a mid-career thing. Like you typically need some capital base. There
Mm-hmm.
are lower cost franchises. So my partners and I have just partnered with a franchisor that you can get in for a very low dollar amount. And we actually offer financing to people who want to come into that franchise. So it can be a really interesting thing to get into when you're young, if you find one of the cheaper franchises. Uh,
Right.
you have to find a cheap one, and the cheap ones will require a lot of shoe leather, like a lot of hustle to get it going. Like this one in particular,
Right. Right.
state sales for like middle upper income and below. So like not Sotheby's and Christie's, but like
Right.
grandma passed away and you need to sell her stuff. And you can build a really big business with something like that, but it's going to have a whole different profile than the guy who's like, I want to buy 30 Taco Bells.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So take me back a little bit to your story again. And I really want to hear about, your upbringing before you discover franchising, before, this becomes a big part of your life. What really guides you? What is sort of, where does your curiosity take you? What fascinates you?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
What fascinates me? Well, I aspire to be a Jedi Knight one day. Um, so I think that the idea of enlightenment is pretty cool. So
Okay.
aside from achieving big business success, which feels fun and like a competition, I played tons of sports all growing up, so I like being on a team, whether like leading the team or just being a part of a team. I love being part of an awesome team that works hard and has camaraderie and all that stuff. Um, so that's a motivator, like winning, but enlightenment, like, I don't know, I feel like that's the right goal to be shooting for. And the Jedi Knight thing flows from like uh, Taoism, and I studied Tai Chi for a while. So I'd like to figure out if chi is actually real and if I could levitate or like, move things using energy. Haven't yet, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
I love it. And if you look today where you gather your sources of inspiration, whether it's personally, professionally, big, small, where does the inspiration come to you from?
I read a bunch. One of a specific thing I came across recently that was inspiring was uh, the virtuosity of Coach Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs. So there was a plot that looked at expected wins, like using all of the stats of team talent juxtaposed against the other team's talent, and like whether you should win or lose, and then what actually happened in the game. And he is just an absurd outlier. Like no one's even close. Like a way up and to the right. Like I know I've seen on when reviewing your podcast, I saw that you had guests who are soccer fanatics. So like Lionel
Yeah.
Messi is a similar outlier. Like you look at him compared to anyone else, and like goals and passes, it's just like virtuosity. And how he does it is just inspiring. Like he has this standard of excellence, which is just unflinching. Like everyone must be at the peak of their game all of the time, and he tolerates nothing except for excellence. Um, and then he's also super warm. Like he adheres to the Teddy Roosevelt quote, or like requoted by Zig Ziglar: "If people don't care what you know until they know you care." Like he really cares about his team, so he's able to be a hard ass because people know it comes from a good place. And then like at some point it's a, virtuous feedback loop because they just keep winning. Even when they don't have like amazing talent, like sure they've had Tim Duncan, they had Kawhi Leonard and whatever, but they've also had plenty of teams that like toe to toe with the other team, there's a talent gap and they won because of it. Also, the last part is relevant here, the system. So with a
Sure.
franchise, you buy a system. He has a system that just works. So and
Right.
things like that, like in business, a Danaher is an inspiring example, like the Danaher business system. And the best franchises have really thoughtful systems, and that's what you're buying. That wasn't a deliberate tie back to franchising; it just sort of came.
I love it. I love it. And last question. What are a few words that you would use to describe yourself? 2 to 3 words. If I were to think, okay, who's Rob Huntington? What words come to mind?
I think a word is persistent.
Okay.
So an example of that is in college. Well, in college, in high school, I wanted to get into Dartmouth College. So I worked really
Okay.
hard to get into Dartmouth College and did. Um, because it had a work hard, play hard mentality, and that struck me as fun.
Sure.
Um, I got there and I wanted to have fun. That was what I optimized for. So I persisted in having fun.
I love it.
Then I wanted to work as a management consultant at BCG Bain McKinsey, and they looked at my GPA and said, "Yeah, no, maybe in the future." I was like, "Well, fair, okay." So then I
Yeah.
worked over the next bunch of years on a series of things and reapplied, and 7 years later, after getting a no, was able to get in, which
Amazing.
was awesome. Like it was brutal, but super valuable training, and I'm grateful for it.
I love it.
Persistence, what I got for you.
And I'll take one more word.
One more word. Uh, a thing that my wife told me is kind of defining of me is wanting to get better at stuff. Like I'm really driven by
Yeah.
like whatever it is. Like I think virtuosity is an ideal unto itself that's really beautiful. So like
It definitely comes across in this talk. 100%, Rob.
cool.
Really.
So like for sales, when I started selling at my family, you'd sell a tutoring program. That was okay.
Yep.
But I thought the beautiful thing was like the deliberate practice of how to get better and better and better over time. Same thing with being a CEO. Like I'm a brand new CEO or 6 months into the job. And I'm sure for a new CEO, I'm probably doing fine. But relative to like a seasoned CEO, I'm probably pretty awful. But I'm confident that over time I can, work hard and get good at it. So I like getting better at stuff. I find that just fun unto itself.
And I think that ties back to persistence. And Rob, thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I just love the conversation. So thank you for your time, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It was great chatting with you. Take care.
Take care. Bye, Rob.